Hello, welcome back to my channel, Beautiful Minutia. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany, and today I'm doing another Goodreads video. I've been doing some of these lately. I did one where kind of like my lowest rated books on Goodreads that were, unpopular opinions, and then some of my highest rated books on Goodreads that were unpopular opinions. Today I'm doing something a little bit different. I recently did a video for my patrons where I was talking about books that I added to my digital TBR within the last couple of months. And in the process of that, I realized that my Goodreads TBR is absolutely out of control. Right now it says I have 1,258 books on there, which is far too many. And so if I want to scroll through and be like, oh, I've heard of a book recently and I want to read it, or what was the name of that book again, or just scroll through for inspiration, there's a lot of books that have been on this list for a while. So I joined Goodreads at the end of 2019. And so my TBR goes back that far. And my reading tastes have solidified since then and also changed a bit in terms of what I want to read. I joined BookTube in terms of my channel at the beginning of 2021, but I started watching BookTube, I think, in 2020. And so I started adding books when I started watching BookTube, and there were books that other people talked about passionately because they loved them. And I'm now at the point where I realize, hey, those books actually are not for me and I do not want to read them. But at the time, I was still kind of figuring out because I was being exposed to so many books that I had never heard of before. And I'm sure you probably had a similar experience when you joined BookTube or Bookstagram or BookTok. You're exposed to a lot of books that maybe you had not heard of before. So I'm going to go through some of my older books on Goodreads and let you know what's on there and whether or not I still want to read them. So immediately, first book on here is Dancing Shoes by Noelle Streatfeild. And I'm not interested in reading this. I was interested in reading this with my daughter when she was younger, and now she's old enough that I don't think she would care about this, and I'm not reading aloud to her as frequently as I was, and so we're taking that one off there. I also have some of the Wayside School books on here, which I did not read as a kid, so I have no nostalgic attachment to them, and I don't think I really care as an adult. There is a lot of middle grade on here, honestly. There's The Best Loved Doll by Rebecca Caudill. I have no idea what that is or why it's there, so I'm taking that off. A couple of books that I do want to keep on here is The Witches by Roald Dahl. I still have not read that one, but I've read a lot of his works, so I would still want to read it at some point. I still have fun reading them, even as an adult. Then I have a couple of nonfictions on here, one of them being The Indifferent Stars Above, the harrowing saga of a Donner Party Bride by Daniel James Brown. And I heard about this from a friend of mine on Instagram, like years and years ago, obviously. It was added November 21st of 2019. And I have been too much of a chicken to pick it up because I'm afraid it's going to be a little too gruesome, but yet in the same respect, I kind of have a little bit of a fascination with that. And then after that is Homework, a Memoir of My Hollywood Years by Julie Andrews. And I love Julie Andrews, so I am still interested in reading that also. We have AD 33 by Ted Dekker on here. This is a sequel to, I think the first one's AD 30, which is it's set during the time of Jesus's ministry, as you might be able to tell by the dates. But Jesus is not like the main character. It's someone else who is living in Israel at the time and is kind of like encountering Jesus and some of the political things that are happening, and some of, it's very like historically contextual in that way. I didn't love AD 30, and I have, as an adult, like an older adult, found that Ted Dekker does not jive with me at all. I have reread some of his books that I absolutely loved when I was a teenager and a young adult, and I don't enjoy reading his books anymore. No, I don't think that there's anything wrong with them. Just something about the prose doesn't click with me anymore, and I don't enjoy it anymore. So I'm going to take that off of there because I don't really care to read any more Ted Dekker for the foreseeable future. There's quite a few C.S. Lewis's on here that I've not yet read, so I'm going to keep those on there. They're all nonfiction. I think I've read all of his fiction at this point. And then there's also, oddly enough, Forgotten God by Francis Chan. Not only do I own that book, but I have read it, so I don't know why it's on my to-read pile. I have a couple of Faulkners on here that were added in March of 2020, and that's probably because that was around the time that I read As I Lay Dying, which I did enjoy. I have read several of his books, but As I Lay Dying is the only one that I enjoyed. I really didn't like, is it Light in August? Or something like that. I really, really did not like that one at all. And I didn't really like The Sound and the Fury either. So the ones that I have on here are Absalom, Absalom, and A Rose for Emily and Other Stories. I am still interested in reading A Rose for Emily because I've heard wonderful things about that. It's a novella, I think. It's either a short story or novella. I'm leaning towards novella. And a lot of people who don't like Faulkner still like A Rose for Emily. So I'm going to keep that on there, but I'm not really interested in reading Absalom, Absalom. I have some Kate Milford books on here, and I don't know that I really care. There's one called The Bone Shaker, which I don't know anything about at all, as well as The Kairos Mechanism. Then also Blue Crown, which is the third Green Glass House book. I only read the first one, and I think I started the second one and didn't really enjoy it. So I think I'm good with the only Kate Milford book that I've read being Green Glass House. Kind of went through a Pam Munoz Ryan phase after I read Esperanza Rising. So I have several of her books on here because I also read, I can't remember what it's called. It's the one that everyone loves. That's like a World War II one that has like 3 different perspectives. And that one was fine. It was Echo. I didn't love it like everyone else did. The only one of books of hers that I have loved is Esperanza Rising. So I'm going to take the other ones I have off of here. One of them is called When Marianne Sang, the true recital of Marianne Anderson. Another one is called Paint the Wind, which we actually do own, and my daughter didn't want to get rid of it. She hasn't read it yet. The illustrations are absolutely beautiful. They are like Brian Selznick illustrations, and if you've read any of his books, you'll know that they are just the most beautiful like pencil art ever. And then also The Dreamer, which I think is like a biography of an artist, if I'm remembering correctly. So I'm finding I just don't really care as much about middle grade as I used to. I do still like middle grade, but when I first joined Goodreads, my daughter was young enough that I was reading aloud to her constantly. And so there's books that were on here that were for her that she's not interested in anymore. And so as a result, neither am I. Oh, there's some Susan Meisner on here. I can take those off. I read one Susan Meisner book, The Shape of Mercy, and hated it with all my heart. There was almost nothing I enjoyed about it, and I only finished it because I desperately needed an audiobook while I was painting. And yeah, I did not like that at all. So I'm not really interested in reading any more Susan Beister. Okay, on here we have The Rose and the Yew Tree by Mary Westmacott. And this is a pen name of Agatha Christie. She wrote some kind of like romance, I don't know. I guess that's what they are. Maybe, I don't know what else they are. Books that she wrote under a different pen name, and I read Absent in the Spring. Actually, I DNF'd it. I hated it so much. And so as a result, I don't really care about reading any more Mary Westmacott. I'm just going to stick to Agatha Christie. There's some books on here that I don't know even anything about. There's a book called The Siren by Cass Kira, as well as Astray by J.F. Rogers, which is the first in the Era Boslia series. And I feel like if I added these 5 years ago and I don't remember anything about them, I can probably just get rid of them. I also don't think I am at all interested in reading the Shatter Me series by Tahira Mafi. I read some of her middle grade and really, really liked it. So I'm sure that the prose in her YA series are actually really, really lovely because they were in her middle grade. But I don't care to read like old YA. I don't care to read YA in general for the most part at this point in my life. That might change pretty soon as I start kind of like pre-reading books for my daughter to make sure that they're appropriate for high school rather than, college aged and above. But yeah, I'm looking at that going like, there's no way that I want to read Shatter Me. I have a ton of books on this next page that are all from Daphne du Maurier, and I do still want to read them all. I've actually read a decent amount of du Maurier, but some of the ones that I still have on my list here, I own most of these as well, are Marianne, The King's General, and The House on the Strand. There's one that I don't, oh, and The Flight of the Falcon. I own that also. There's one that's The Infernal World of Branwell Bronte, which I was going to say never heard of. Clearly, I have heard of it because I added that book on September 24th of 2020, but I don't remember hearing about it since, so I don't know why it was added. I have some Catherine Valenti on here, and I think that they are both middle grade. I read one of her middle grades, and I think it was the Glasstown Games or something like that about the Bronte siblings. And I thought the writing was really beautiful, but that the story itself was an absolute mess. So I actually am interested in reading more from her. There's one called Six Gun Snow White, which looks like it would be a fun Snow White retelling. Then there's one in the Night Garden, which is the first in the Orphan's Tales. I don't think I'm really interested in the Night Garden one, but I do think that the retelling might be really, really fun. I also have The Art of Racing in the Rain by Garth Stein, which I feel like people talk about all the time. Like, well, I don't hear people talk about it all the time. I just see it on like places. I don't know. And maybe they made a movie out of it as well, but like I don't know anything about it. And so I don't think I really care. So I think I'm going to throw that off of there. Speaking of YA, am I really interested in reading Ready Player One? Probably not. I'm also definitely not interested in reading Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell. I have read some Rainbow Rowell like a long time ago when I actually was the YA age range, and it's just, I didn't even love her books back then. I think I read Eleanor and Park, and then I read another one. And so I don't know. I think Pumpkinheads is just on here because people talk about it and love it, and it's one of their favorites of hers, but I don't think I actually care. I also don't think I care about reading Wicked by Gregory Maguire. I haven't actually even seen the Wicked musical or the movies ever. But I've heard good things about those, but I've actually heard really bad things about the book. I've heard that the book is nothing like the musical, and that in this case, this is one of those scenarios where the movie/musical is actually better than the book. I have some homeschooling books on here that I'm going to take off. One of them is Awaking Wonder, Opening Your Child's Heart to the Beauty of Learning by Sally Clarkson. I DNF'd one Sally Clarkson book and really didn't enjoy it, but I feel like I'm also at that stage in parenting and in homeschooling where I'm no longer like needing the same support in the same situation because I don't have kids in the younger years, and I feel really comfortable with how we're homeschooling, how I'm teaching, how she's learning. I feel like we've hit our groove in that, and we did years ago. So I don't feel like I need the same level of support as I did in the younger years when we were trying to figure out what our educational style was, and just feeling lost and alone and without support. I actually do have support for homeschooling in person and online that I did not have when I began my homeschooling journey. So I feel like most of the homeschooling books on here I don't really need anymore. Okay, so here's an example of why I want to do this. I just found on this list Rowan Hood, Outlaw Girl of the Sherwood Forest, which is clearly a Robin Hood retelling by Nancy Springer, who wrote the Enola Holmes books, which are tons of fun. And so now I want to read that to see if I can pass it on to Claire because she loved the Enola Holmes books as well. I want to be able to find books that I actually still want to read because I'm on like page 7 and have deleted a bunch of books already. I'm not telling you about all of them because I feel like that would be horrifically boring, but I have gone under the 1200 mark at this point. So I'm making some progress here so that way I can actually find books that I am still interested in reading. I also haven't even updated Goodreads since like April, I think. And as a result, there are books that are on my want to read that I'm like, oh, I've read a bunch of these this year. So I really need to just update Goodreads in general and sit down and do that. But it's going to take a while. And so I've been putting it off. So yeah, but there are quite a few on here that I'm like really excited that I'm like, oh, I forgot about that book, which is exactly why I'm doing this. Here's where I'm getting into my thriller section. I can see where I was listening to people who were talking about thrillers because I have a bunch of Ruth Ware on here, as well as some B.A. Paris, which I read a B.A. Paris book and thought it was kind of lame. I can't even remember what it was called. but I didn't really like it that much. I think I gave it 3 stars because I did have some issues with it. And so we're kind of getting into that section where that was like who I was listening to. And we're also starting to get into the section where there's more YA fantasy slash romantasy. So there's a lot of things that I am removing at this point. There's also some historical fiction on here, like The Girl in the Blue Coat by Monica Hess. And I don't even know where I heard of that from, but I've realized that I don't love historical fiction. I do like it in moderation, but it feels like a lot of historical fiction is set in Western Europe during World War II, particularly in France or in London. And so as a result, a lot of them feel pretty samey to me, and a lot of them are dual timeline. It feels like that's just the thing to do, and a lot of times the dual timeline does not feel like it actually contributes anything of meaning at all. It feels like people are doing it just because that's what's popular and that's what people like, but a lot of times for me personally, the present day timeline or more modern timeline doesn't seem like it matters at all. And so as a result, I've been kind of turned off from historical fiction. Not that I actually think historical fiction is bad or that I don't enjoy it sometimes, because I do. But overall, I don't gravitate towards it for that reason. So I'm going to take some of those off here as well. Okay, now I'm going to hit the find duplicates. It says that I have 29 duplicates on my shelves. So I feel like as a result, I think every time you enter like a giveaway or whatever, it adds that to your shelf. And so some of these I definitely still want to read, but there's really no point in me keeping it on there. One of them is A Swim in the Pond, which is about different Russian authors and their writings. And so I do still want to read that. I have Lady Tan's Circle of Women by Lisa C on here like 4 times. So deleting all of those except one is going to create so much more space on here. I say space like it's an actual shelf, but I remember entering Goodreads or giveaways for that several times. Okay, I think I'm gonna stop here. I still have some duplicates to go through, but I'm kind of out of time. So I am now down to 1,137 books, which doesn't feel like it's a lot, but I have removed, over 100 books. So that's really exciting. So I'm going to continue to work on this and clean it out because I am excited with the books that I found that I'm like, oh, I forgot that I wanted to read that. So clearing this out is making a big difference. I'm actually almost through things that I've added through the year 2020, and it slows down once I get probably past like 2022 or so. Then I start slowing down and kind of realizing what my reading tastes are and more what I would enjoy reading. So those ones are going to be a little bit more accurate. There were hundreds and hundreds of books that I have added before I kind of had solidified that. So thank you for coming along with me on this journey. I'd love to hear from you. How is your digital TBR looking? Are you someone that every time you hear about a book that's interests you, you add to Goodreads? Because that is what I have been doing for years. And now as a result, I can find absolutely nothing because what I want to read has changed. So I'd love to hear what is the case for you. What's the number on your digital Goodreads? Will you make me feel better about myself or worse? We'll see. And if there's any books on here that I've deleted that you think I would actually like, feel free to chime in with that in the comments as well. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like and also subscribe so you can continue to see more bookish content from me, and I will see you again next time.